hi, welcome everybody. It's day 3 of Creativity and Wellbeing Week. It's been such a busy week online already. Please do share using the hashtags. So hashtag Creativity Cares, hashtag CCW21, or Creativity and Wellbeing Week. If you're enjoying this session or you want to share any of your artworks from today, that would be fantastic. So I am not Jenny Regan. My name is Anna, and I'm the digital lead at London Arts and Health. I'm posing in Jenny's Zoom today to host a fantastic charity. So we've got Create with us today. I would love to welcome Nikki, who's the CEO from the charity, and who will introduce everybody else who's on this call as well. I'll just ask if you can mute yourself if you're not kind of speaking or joining in. That will lead for a better experience, I think. Yeah, we're really excited for today's session. We're going to have a live art well-being kind of session led by one of Create's artists. And we're going to hear from Nikki a little bit more about the charity and some of the things that she's learned working in the sector as well. So welcome, Nikki. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
Perfect. So Nikki, do you want to just introduce us quickly to your team? That would be fabulous, just so we know who we've got in the Zoom today.
Great. So welcome everybody. It's fantastic to be here, and it's really exciting to be doing this session, to have a chance to introduce you to one of our professional artists, Amy. Give us a wave, Amy. Amy is a professional artist, and she has wellbeing really at the heart of her practice, as you'll see in a moment when she does her workshop. We'd love you to put your screens on if you're happy to do that, so we can see who's in the room and have a bit of interaction. Also from our team here is Mike, who's our Director of Comms, and Frankie, who's on our project team. It's really great to see you all. So we were going to start the session today. I'm going to do a very quick sort of Q&A with Amy, so you can get to know her a little bit and understand a little bit about her practice. And then I'm going to hand over to her, and she's going to do a 30-minute drawing workshop, and then I'm going to talk a little bit in a Q&A with Victoria about Create and the charity and what we've been doing for the last 18 years since I started it. So Amy, it's great to have you here on this workshop. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a Create artist and how long you've worked with us?
Of course, yeah. Thanks everyone for inviting me here today. First of all, it's really, really great to connect with you all. So I started at Create in 2017 on their Nurturing Talent programme. So learning alongside other emerging arts practitioners like actors and musicians, and supporting lead artists with their workshops and the community groups that they co-create and collaborate with. And since 2018, I've been working with adult and young carers and individuals with complex and additional learning needs in SEN schools. Yeah, so a real range of community groups, and sort of no two projects have been the same. They've been really unique.
Thanks, Amy. And tell us a little bit about how wellbeing factors into your participatory practice.
So joy is a massive theme and motivation within my practice, so naturally wellbeing slots into it. And within workshops, I always find it's really important to have moments of joy and laughter and fun, but also those moments where you sort of reflect and contemplate and engage in materials, be it like paint or clay or colour or texture. So I guess a range of different access points, as well-being sort of differs for everyone, and it can sort of vary our interpretation.
Thanks, Amy. And finally, I know that we always at Create say we're not really meant to have favourites, but it'd be great to hear about a recent project that's been a highlight for you.
So yeah, it's so difficult to choose, but perhaps a recent highlight for me has been working with Bead House, which is they're a group of adults with additional learning needs, and we conducted it all through Zoom. So we would meet twice a week, and the workshops are based around their favourite colours. So we chose our favourite colours as a group on the first session, and then each week some of us dressed up in those colours. We committed to say like pink or blue or whatever, And there was a lot of playing games and drawing, and yeah, just a lot of laughter. They were such a brilliant group and so supportive of each other. So yeah, that's probably one of my recent highlights.
Thanks, Amy. And yes, I know when I came to visit that project, it was just so utterly joyful. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of introduction to you and your practice. And I'm now going to hand over to you for the next half an hour. And if everybody would just like to kind of relax and enjoy, and Amy is going to lead us now through a drawing workshop. Thank you, Amy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nikki. Okay, how is everyone? In terms of materials, if you can see there's another screen on this Zoom call and it's got my hands on it, my giant hands. If you have some paper ready, that'd be great. So just plain A4 paper and something to draw with. So pencil or a pen. If you've got a couple of colours, you're very welcome to bring them, or any other drawing art supplies you'd like to use. Brilliant. So as people gather their materials, I'll just give you an idea of what we'll be doing for the next half an hour or so. So we're going to be doing a series of drawing activities, and after each one, I'll just give a little bit of context of when I might use them in a workshop. It's very much dependent on the participant group, but they're sort of activities or sort of ways of warming up and sort of tapping into our senses and relating to well-being. And I might ask you if that's okay, just to hold up your drawings. We'll do it all at the same time, so everyone's looking at each other's, and I won't single anyone out. And is everyone okay using the chat function as well? We're sort of yeah. Okay, great. Okay, I think that's everyone back, which is brilliant. Okay, so just as a little check-in with each other, my question to you is, tell us one thing that's brought you joy recently. It can be something really small, something that's been grounding, or that's made you laugh. I'll share mine, and feel free just to write them into the chat when you've thought of yours. I'm actually just looking at it, but my recent joy has been my avocado plant sprouting. Oh, we've also got seeing seeds sprout for our tomatoes. Brilliant. Seeing the tree on my small balcony explode with glorious orange leaves. It's that time of the year. Walking in the rain. It's been incredibly rainy. Oh, meeting a friend's baby for the first time. That's so special. Oh, someone's car broke down last night. Oh, your big winter coat gave me joy. That's incredible. Oh, hearing. I'll let you read them. I won't read them to you. Oh, excellent. So a lot of them relating to a sort of new life or appreciation. Ooh. Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. And if you're still typing, feel free just to post it. Okay, great. So the first activity we're going to do is, you've probably played this a million times before. Oh, brilliant. A lot of connections to the landscape as well. Nice. And sounds. Incredibly triggering. Brilliant. Okay, so the first sort of short drawing we're going to do, if you've got like two different coloured pens or a pen and a pencil, that'd be good. Don't worry if not, but I'll just use two different colours so it's quite clear for you. We're going to just take 5 seconds to draw a scribble on our page. It can be any kind of scribble. And if you're not sure, you can sort of look at my hands and see what I'm doing. Okay, Brilliant. Has everyone got a scribble? And using your other colour or using the same pen if you've got only one, we're going to add marks and details to our scribble to turn it into something. So feel free to turn your page around and see if you can see a kind of shape or an object or a landscape or a pattern emerging. See the lack of concentration on everyone's faces. Okay, and when you're ready, perhaps we could just hold them up to the screen. Amazing. That's incredible. I can see such a range of like figures and animals, more abstract ones and little scenes. Incredible. Oh, thanks everyone. So I just use this activity just to warm ourselves up and sort of in workshops to sort of, yeah, tap into our imagination, and it's just a quick challenge to get us thinking. Okay, we're going to take our line for a walk for the next really short warm up. Choose your drawing tool of choice. Again, it's a game you might have played before, but the artist Paul Clay described drawing as just taking your line for a walk, so that's what we're going to do. You can use the back of this bit of paper that you've drawn your scribble on if you want. Okay, so I'm going to describe different scenarios in which our line is going to go for a walk in, and we're going to, it's up to you, you can draw those scenarios, you can imagine that your page is a map and it's navigating its way through. So if you have any questions, and if that sounds a little bit abstract, please do feel free to pop questions in the chat, but hopefully all will become clear. So I'm going to narrate our walk and we can draw along at the same time. So our line's going to go for a walk, and it's walking through a park, down quite sort of meandering route through a park. And then all of a sudden it sees some ducks in a pond. And it decides to jump in and go swimming. So how is your line going swimming? It then jumps out of the pool and is really, really tired. So it's moving really, really, really slowly. And as it's making its way back through the park, it gets caught up in a massive tornado. Then it decides to catch a bus and go home. And eventually it just falls asleep because it's so tired. Is everyone okay? Okay, great. Should we hold up our drawings if you've made one? Or a section if you want. You don't have to. Oh, amazing. I always love it how the tornadoes sort of take over. Oh wow, I can see some really detailed maps. They're incredible. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you for taking part. I know it feels like a little bit of quite a childish activity, but it's one that's quite nice, in which sometimes you can work in emotions, you can think about how you're using your drawing tool. Yeah, and often I would ask each participant, usually I use this activity in with groups of children, and each of them would think of a scenario or a way of walking or a way of moving, and we would go around and they would tell the story rather than me. Okay, great. So we're just going to do another drawing activity. We've got a new piece of paper. We're going to spend a little bit more time on this one. And for this one, we're going to start off by taking a big collective breath together. So we're going to all breathe in at the same time. You might want to readjust yourself in your seat. Just going to breathe in. And breathe out. For your next breath in, you can put one of your hands on your belly. And you might have done diaphragmatic breathing before, where you breathe really deeply so your belly expands with air. And then when you breathe out, you should feel a slight contraction. Shall we breathe in for 8 counts, and you can count in your head, and then breathe out for 8. Okay, brilliant. So you might have your own sort of rhythm going, and you might not be counting to 8, and that's totally fine. But we're going to, taking the idea of inhaling and exhaling, we're going to draw a pattern or sort of a series of shapes that correspond or trace that breathing in and out. There's absolutely no wrong or right way of doing it. I've seen people do sort of wonderful things with circles and sort of contracting and showing that in a squiggle, and I've seen lots of different interpretations of it. So when you're ready, you can start drawing your breath on your page. I've also seen really sort of accurate diagrams of lungs when we do this activity as well, so anything goes. Okay, brilliant. So maybe just take your last sort of squiggle, your last just finished of our drawings. I saw Anna's one very briefly. Is everyone okay just to hold theirs up so we can see? Oh, amazing! Such strong drawings for everyone. Fantastic, thank you. And usually in a workshop we'd go around and in a normal Create workshop we'd go around and sort of talk about each of our pieces. I should have mentioned that before, but it's much more interactive. But thank you very much everyone for showing us your work. We're going to have a little bit of a longer activity which taps into our sense of listening. Frankie, is it okay if are you okay to share sound? Thank you, because I was having a little bit of trouble the other day. So this next activity thinks about sound and music and translating that into a image. So we're going to listen to, I think we'll have time for maybe a few tracks of music inspired by nature. And using your pens, pencils, or whatever you've got, it'd be great if you could respond to the sounds that you hear, to the rhythm, to the notes, to the music. Perhaps we've had responses where sort of imagine you're watching a film, what kind of scene would you be seeing if this was the soundtrack to it? Or we've had responses that were quite literal and people drew the instruments that they could hear. And we've had responses that were really abstract, so just gestures and marks and lines responding to particular notes people picked out from the music. So whatever direction you want to take it in, it'd be great to, sort of just enjoy the music. I always think just enjoy and don't feel pressured to make any marks for the first couple of seconds. We've got time, and even if it's just a tiny sort of drawing or tiny scribble that you respond to with, that's absolutely fine. Thanks, Frankie. Have you got the Spotify playlist?
Everyone hear that? Is that okay?
Thanks, Frankie. Just want to finish off your drawings. I should say ordinarily in a workshop we might spend a little bit longer or return to this activity a few times with different kinds of music. I'll just pop the name in the chat. Okay, would everyone be happy just to hold their drawings up? Wow. What is that tracing paper that one of them's on? It's incredible. I love all the colours. Oh, wow. I can see, oh, we've got a mix. It sort of looks like ink some people have used from here. Is that ink, Caroline?
Yeah, it's actually a Japanese calligraphy sort of felt pen thing. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
That's all I had time to grab.
That's perfect. That's great. Thank you. Oh, they're all so incredible. I wish we had time to sort of go around and sort of spotlight everyone's work. But and I can see some scenes, figures in. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Great. So that's the last drawing activity that we'll explore together. But just as a means of sort of gathering everyone's thoughts, maybe. I know it's a little bit hard because we're not everyone's muted, but perhaps we could use the chat again. If there was, if you could choose maybe one activity and say how it made you feel, or a kind of emotion associated, or a word you would associate with one of the activities that we've done today. Great. Or an observation or a comment. It's all welcome if you've got something a bit longer. Thanks, Ellen, for starting us off. Oh, that's really great to hear. Thanks, everyone. And perhaps I'll just leave you with this before I hand back to Nikki and Anna. I'll just leave you with this one thought. I went to a workshop recently that was put on by Engage, and their wellbeing practitioner sort of spoke about 6 minutes, taking 6 minutes to do something like continuous writing or drawing. And I think all of these activities could be adapted sort of to 6 minutes. And maybe if we had time, we would have sort of spoken about what activities we could build into our day that are 6 minutes long. But maybe that's just something to think about moving forward. Thank you so much for your comments. They're really brilliant. And yeah, thank you for taking part and being so willing to share your artwork. It's been great. Yeah, it's been great working with you all. Should I pass back to Nikki and Anna?
Thanks so much, Amy. That was just the best lunchtime I've had for a very long time. It's great to take some time to do something relaxing and time for ourselves, and particularly during this really important Creativity and Wellbeing Week. And I think I'm now going to be talking with you, Victoria. Is that right?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Nikki. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Victoria. I run the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, and I'm stepping in for Jenny Regan from London Arts and Health just for this session. But I'm really glad to be doing it because I've known about Create and for a very long time. I think we must have started in Arts and Health around the same time. So it's great to have a chance to talk to you a bit more about it. So, Nikki, how did Create start?
Well, we've been going for 18 years in July, and I actually started the charity from my dining room table. At the time, I was running an orchestra, and I was very passionate about taking music out into the community, along with all the other wonderful things that we did on concert platforms and broadcasting and touring. And I had a vision about 18 and a half years ago of a charity that would work across all of the creative arts across the UK to empower and upskill and bring people together and enhance people's well-being through the creative arts. And so I bought a company, wrote a business plan, and it does seem truly amazing that 18 years later, here we are, coming hopefully to the end of this pandemic where we've all had to learn so many new things.
Yeah, it's amazing. And organisations like yours and also a lot of people that I recognise in the room who've managed to find ways to adapt during COVID. I think one of the things we've been trying to do this year is shine a bit of a light on all of that work that's been carrying on and try and push back against that narrative that seemed to be around for a while, that culture had somehow stopped during COVID. And as we all know, it was carrying on. So I should say, if anybody in the room would like to ask Nikki a question, please do write something in the chat, or you can, there's not so many of us here, so feel free to just yell. And in the meantime, tell us a bit about the arts and health landscape when you started. Would you say things were quite similar then, or what are the changes that you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, I think when I kind of think about 20 years ago, and the model that we're using really hasn't changed. We individually design and run creative workshops that bring people together to give them a chance to be creative and enhance their well-being and all sorts of other things. And I think that this has become so much more understood. I think the importance and impact of the creative arts on well-being and health, and there's so much fantastic research that's happening now, and really great impact evaluation. And it's been really interesting kind of to see how social prescribing is now coming into play, which is really, really exciting, and how arts in hospitals, for example, are increasingly important. And as a charity, we work in lots and lots of different settings, and we have a program working in children's psychiatric units, for example, which I could talk a little bit more about later. But I think it's a really, really confusing space, because if you sort of think back to 20 years ago, and a lot of stuff that was happening politically around making museums free to go to again, and the Arts Council was kind of bringing creativity into schools and all of those sorts of things. And then you think about kind of the impact on the economy. I mean, just in 2019, I know last year's been very, very sort of impacted in our sector, but in 2019, you think that the arts and culture industry grew massively and was worth about 10.8 billion. And the World Economic Forum identified creativity as the third most important skill for business. So, the work that so many of us are doing around building skills and creative thinking and all of those sort of things. So you've got that landscape. And then just 2 weeks ago, we were making a lot of noise about the fact that the government was talking about introducing a 50% cut in art subject funding at higher education level. So I think in some ways, creativity, I mean, it's absolutely, you'd expect me running a creative arts charity to say that creativity is absolutely a right and a need for every single individual. And it feels as though in the kind of arts and wellbeing space, there's been a kind of a real growth in understanding of the value and importance. And yet politically, art subjects are being kind of taken out of our schools and universities, etc.
Yeah, there's a complete perversity in that, really. I think the risk that it sometimes feels like we're running is that we're making ourselves indispensable at such a tiny cost, and you end up in situations where you've got Matt Hancock talking about the arts being free or cheap, and it's a constant negotiation, I think, especially in this work, between demonstrating value for money, which is not a phrase I like very much, and at the same time trying to articulate the need for investment in this work so that we're not all in this kind of strange, precarious position where we're being funded by trusts and foundations for tiny programs rather than something a bit more substantive. So I might mess with the system slightly, because I know there's other people in the room who've been doing this a long time. Pippa, I don't suppose you've got any thoughts on the shifting landscape, do you? I know that's a bit obnoxious to put you on the spot. You don't have to say anything.
So yeah, you weren't meaning me, were you, Victoria?
Yeah.
just double checking. What about the changing landscape? I feel like definitely the work that we have been working sort of with an arts and health model for a number of years with communities, but I sort of feel that.
Oh, sorry, Pippa, something went haywire then. Could you unmute?
Sorry, still there. Yeah, it sort of feels that politically now, it's the words sort of social prescribing and green social prescribing are very high up in the agenda at the moment, and it's not that this work is new. I think the work has always been there, and artists and community art organisations have always been doing that work. It's just that it has sort of risen up the agenda, and really are sort of, I guess it's helping arts organisations where, and it's also helping the medical model and the medical world think more widely about the opportunities that are available, and helping people to be more aware of their own well-being and be more aware of what they can do to support their well-being. So it feels like we're sort of being better recognised at the moment for the work that has been going on, but it's slightly differently worded now. And I guess we're all sort of, linking into that movement to sort of make sure that we can meet the need. But I would say that definitely for myself and probably other people in the room, that actually what COVID has shown is that with new ways of working through COVID and new blended models of delivery, we've probably been reaching more people than ever, because we've taken a whole different range of ways of working, and digitally, and working in partnership with probably more partners than ever before. So I think my sort of question is sort of how we maintain that, and also find enough funding to be able to to meet that need. And I'm sure that's probably familiar with lots of you here. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it came through very strongly in the case studies that we were gathering as well. There's quite maybe a nice link back to Amy. Anna was asking a question about how you got involved with Create and whether you could talk a bit more about your practice. But I guess you've also had to sort of undergo this huge shift to digital.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning that I started with Create in 2017 as part of the Nurturing Talent programme. And yeah, pre-pandemic, we were working in venue with community groups. And yeah, that's been a massive shift. And Create Live is just, I've learned so much in terms of shifting not only your practice online, especially as mine is really sort of based in materials and sculpture and clay and stuff. So that's been quite a tricky avenue to sort of learn from. but I guess like as was mentioned, like the amazing reach that you can have working digitally. I worked with a group up in Liverpool with Create, and it was, yeah, no way would that have happened. And being able to continue that work as best you can, and it's like all the time it's sort of improving in terms of what we can offer via the workshop, sort of in terms of the setup, like, and everything. So yeah, I'm not sure that answers your question, but yeah.
I asked you about 3 questions in one. Which is a bit unfair. But I thought what was so great about your workshop was the pace of it. For me personally, I found that really helpful, that you worked out a way of engaging people in a really gentle way, and that, yeah, what you were describing just now, how it's not so much learning the digital skills, because I felt like everybody just did that really fast. It's how we manage these spaces in a way that still generates a sense of intimacy and a relationship, I guess.
Yeah.
It's both complex. I'm going to throw it back to Nikki, if that's all right. Just tell us a bit about how you're structured. Who do you work with? How are you structured and funded? You've talked a little bit about this at the front, but
so we work across the UK with a range of, well, really with anyone who's disadvantaged or vulnerable. So we work in prisons, connecting dads to their children. We work with lots of young and adult carers across the UK, with disabled children and adults. As I mentioned, we work in children's psychiatric units with frail older people. So a really wide range of people. And every project, so last year through the Create Live delivery mechanism that Amy just mentioned, which is our Zoom delivery, we ran 59 different projects, over 930 workshops across the country during the year. And every project is kind of deeply consulted ahead of being designed. So we talk to our partner organisations, whether that's a young carer service, a prison, a day centre for frail older people, a school, etc. And we consult really rigorously and closely with the participants, because of course we want to make sure that what we're delivering actually meets the needs and interests of the young carers or the prisoners or the older people, for example. And so we kind of design that program, and then we have a pool of professional Create artists, of whom Amy is one, and so we then select the right artists to deliver the project based on their skills and what the partner organisation is looking us to achieve through that. And there are core things that every workshop we do will deliver. So creative thinking, teamwork, communication, the art form skill, whatever that is, connecting people. I mean, that's a really central thing, is bringing people together to create, and through that process, building all those skills and self-esteem, etc. And then we rigorously evaluate every project against all the kind of intended outputs and outcomes, using that awful language. You know, what we said we're going to do, have we done it? Have the participants felt connected, and have they built their skills, etc. And then we make sure that any learning we feed back into the next project. So, you know, we're very much a learning organisation, and really, really passionate about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that's why you thrive, because it is that process always of sort of iteration and working out how to be relevant. And sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you were saying there about those 3 stages, what are we going to do, and have we done it? I've forgotten the middle one, but have we done it? The first one, I've noticed, sometimes gets left behind. And although, you know, often I think you can get involved in this work through a personal passion and slightly forget to set up that framework around what your aims are. And it can be tough then to maintain a project, because there's no sense of sort of a line running from the beginning to the end. I thought it was also really interesting that you talked about, you know, your aims being around creative thinking, teamwork, communication. I was speaking to the What Works Wellbeing people the other day about what it is that's common to a lot of activities that support people's well-being. And while the arts are often the means. Really, what you're aiming for is community, agency, pleasure, all of these things. And that, yeah. Another interesting thing I just wanted to pick up on was the fact that you're working across prisons, working with carers, working in psychiatric units. So it's interesting for an organisation like us, because we're the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, but so many of the people we work with, like you, are working across criminal justice, with carers. It's not necessarily, these silos that we've slightly created for ourselves don't necessarily fit the work. I think you were sort of hinting at that as well, Pippa. It's often the organisations are working more with a logic that's better matched to what's happening on the ground.
I think for me, I mean, people, of course, always want to be able to define things. And for me, when I set the charity up, I just saw, because there's always that thing, right, about, is another charity needed? And it felt to me that 18 years ago, there was just a huge gap, that there were people doing bits of what Create does. And I guess when I was running the orchestra, doing music in community settings and really pushing the boundaries of where we took that music. But for me, it felt as though there was so much need everywhere. And I love the fact the Arts Council's new kind of creativity for all mantra. I mean, it could be kind of create, I suppose, that because that's what we believe in so passionately, that absolutely creativity should be a right for every single person, because it enables us to think in new ways. It enables us to, as Amy's workshop just so brilliantly demonstrated, to relax, to use a different side of our brain, to have some vital me time. And I just find so interesting that just with that 30 minutes of time just to do something different for yourself, that's focusing on yourself, you feel so refreshed and can approach all the other, different things you do in life in a kind of really a new way. And for me, that's really, I could write a 100-page thesis on why I think everyone should have the right to have access to creativity and the creative arts.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's sort of lateral thinking as well, isn't it? Developing your problem-solving capacities. God knows we've got quite a few problems to solve at the moment. Does anybody have anything they want to jump in with? Anybody in the meeting?
I had a quick question, actually, Nikki. I wondered, in light of the pandemic and and for Amy as well, actually, for both of you, kind of working in ways like this, how much do you think you will continue working perhaps more digitally, or will you sort of return to face, or continue doing both as we move on through the pandemic?
Such a great question, Anna. And I think from me, from an organisational basis, and then it'd be great to hear from you, Amy, about you as an artist and one of our artists. But from us as an organisational basis, one of the things that has been so amazing that's come out of having to redesign, and we did that within 2 weeks, so it was just a hugely fast transformation. And what has been absolutely magical is the number of people we've been able to reach who we never could access our work before. So, for example, adult carers who can't leave their home because they have a 24/7 unpaid caring role. Bringing people together. So we've set up a project in Scotland, going back to adult carers, that's bringing together adult carers from Edinburgh and Glasgow. And these extraordinary friendships have developed across a screen. We've also brought together participants, young carers from across the country. And I think for me, when we don't normally work at Christmas, but this year we were asked to run some projects for young carers at Christmas. And I think for me, that whole geography thing was really brought to light when I popped in to see the final sharing of our Young Carers project at Christmas. And it was a photography project. And I saw these incredible photographs with snow in them. And it just reminded me that although I wasn't myself enjoying a white Christmas in London, some of us in the country were. And so for me, that's been an amazing thing, opening people's eyes and minds up, people who maybe because the nature of being a carer or being someone who's an older person is unable to leave their home, maybe, that their worlds are opened up. I don't know, Amy, if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think echoing sort of the possibilities of what the digital reach can enable, but also, yeah, what it includes and excludes is always a question that sort of goes on in my mind. And I guess it really is, maybe for my practice and working with different organisations, I can sort of foresee that it'll be like a blended approach in terms of for example, I'm working with a gallery and a small group of children, but because of COVID precautions, we're creating a resource that then gets sent out to other groups of children. And it's sort of, yeah, how can that be distributed most fairly? So yeah, it's a difficult question, but yeah.
The thing about blended seems like it's going to be the way a lot of us will go. I suppose I would just throw in a note of caution about just not doing twice the work.
Yeah.
Same amount of time. That was so fascinating. Thank you both. I'm going to hand back to Anna, but it was a real pleasure to be able to spend a bit more time with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. This has just been a truly joyful hour. And Amy, I want to thank you because I am a terrible drawer, but I actually drew something that was quite sweet. So thank you for eliciting that out of me. Drawing is not my medium. But yeah, to Nikki, Mike and Frankie for creating this session for us today from Create. Thank you so much. There's a link to the website in the chat. I also just want to draw everyone's attention. We have curated events going on this week, as well as events submitted by our members on the Creativity and Wellbeing website. So please do join in. Everything is free. And use the hashtags and share your drawings from today. We would absolutely love to see these gorgeous squiggles and beautiful lines that Amy has helped us all draw. I'm definitely feeling very joyful this afternoon. So thank you, Nikki, thank you, Amy, and thank you to all the attendees at today's lunchtime session.